come, watching the ships roll in, and then I watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. 'Cause I've had nothing to live for, and look like nothing's gonna come my way.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Yeah. It's funny, when you are in a distressed situation, the whole world is against you. Sometimes the only thing that you think you can do is sit there and waste time just watching the tide come back in. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Late Night Money. Money, money, money. That's all we talk about. Money, 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 ladies and gentlemen. And you might also get a cameo appearance from the Exceptional Conservative Show, Cat. So be careful. You never know what you're going to get at this hour of the night. But you will get the truth. I tell you that. And the truth is coming out in DC Ist as of this afternoon. According to DC Ist, Mayor Muriel Bowser has put together a budget proposal that calls for repurposing camera ticket money. New task force to look at equity in fines. Now, the majority of the cameras happen to be east of the river, but by golly, how could that have to do with race, right? Okay. Mayor Muriel Bowser's new budget proposal includes the addition of 342 new traffic enforcement cameras. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fight against every single, even the old ones. I'm going to fight against that one. I digress. And a new wrinkle. Here's the political slush fund. Yeah, Muriel Bowser is creating a political slush fund. Here it is. The $580 million in revenue the cameras are expected to generate over the next 4 years is slated to go into the general fund, not a street safety fund as originally intended. Lie after lie after lie. The district will also create a task force to study the impact of flat fines. Bowser's proposal to redirect the funds to prop up the budget is a change from the Vision Zero law that required camera ticket money to go to efforts to redesign streets. Wait a minute. We're waiting for over $600 million in tickets to be paid by Maryland and Virginia. And when we add these $500 million, I need my CFO. I can't possibly add 6 and 5. $1 billion slush fund. $1 billion slush fund. For Council Member Charles Allen, who heads the D.C. Council Transportation Committee, that is a move in the wrong direction. Oh my God, Charles Allen and Kim McClinton are agreeing on something? Oh, clutch the pearls. Oh. But he might be agreeing for the wrong reason. I think that most of us on the council want to see those dollars go towards improving safety, slower speeds, safer streets. He said it's not about the revenue. What did she just prove? It's everything about the revenue. There's a law in the District of Columbia that prevents loan sharks from charging more than 33% in interest on a loan product. However, in the District of Columbia, if you don't pay the fine doubles. That's 100%. Muriel Bowser is worse than a loan shark. There you go. But he also said Bowser's decision plays into the hands of people who say the cameras have never been about safety, but about raising revenue. Charles. Oh my. Yes, it has always been. Understandably, it makes people who are already cynical feel like they just proved their point. She just proved our point, Charlie. Sit down. Also, it's an infringement on our 5th, 6th, and 14th constitutional right. It is. So all that needs to be challenged. Budget Director Jennifer Reed says without redirecting those funds, the district could face a debt cap that wouldn't allow them to fund capital improvements on the streets. Wasn't your CFO in front of Congress, 2 weeks ago, saying, "Don't worry about it. We got the money. It's in some little coffin area. It's sealed up. Got a little lock on it. Don't worry about it. We got it. We got money." Meanwhile, some advocates say the more than tripling of cameras, including 140 new bus lane enforcement cameras and 122 new speed cameras, is simply not the right move. Paya Saratha Jones, Deputy Executive Director of the Fine and Fees Justice Center. The Fine and Fees Justice Center. Oh, you gotta love these people. Is disappointed DC is continuing what she calls a flawed model, and that traffic calming and narrowing streets to limit speed is the smarter play. That's dumb too. Mayors often roll out these programs saying they are about street safety and reducing injury, crashes, and fatalities, which is a good policy goal, she said. But what almost always ultimately ends up happening is you see how much revenue it's generating and you shift away. Watching the tide come in, watching the tide go back out again. We got a government program that's become a slush fund for the mayor. Yeah. You shouldn't have to rely on people breaking the law to fund important government functions. Ladies and gentlemen, in the District of Columbia, some of you have said that I have become quite mean-spirited with this, and that severely I need to better focus my attentions on more important things, like making certain the tidal basin doesn't flood over, or making certain that the buildings don't go beyond the size of the Washington Monument, things like that. I'm going to tell you that you are being hoodwinked and bamboozled and led astray, and you're allowing your government to tax you with their limited representation at a level that is unconstitutional. It's a revenue game, has nothing to do with public safety.
Politicians say red light cameras save lives. The red light cameras are less about safety and more about corruption and profit. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. You know, some people love having their pictures taken, some people don't. But no one likes having their picture taken by a red light camera. Except for vampires. They're not really worried about it. For those of you who don't know, red light cameras are those funny looking cameras that hang on traffic lights. They take pictures of cars that run red lights. When the light is red, the camera automatically takes a picture of the license plate if a vehicle goes over a sensor in the intersection. Then the picture is sent to the registered driver, along with a ticket. In the US, fines can range from anywhere between $50 to $500. Red light cameras aren't in every city and state. Only 23 states, plus Washington, D.C., have red light cameras. Wait, Florida has red light cameras? That's a surprise considering how driving laws there are really treated more as suggestions. Other states have limitations or even bans on using red light cameras to issue citations. Red light cameras are meant to discourage drivers from speeding and running red lights, or so we're told. On paper, this means fewer deaths caused by reckless and unsafe driving. Although if they really wanted to reduce reckless and unsafe driving, they would have a maximum driving age. Looking at you again, Florida. But it turns out all red light cameras are doing is giving a green light on cash.
On a recent night in South Suburban Crestwood, you'd be excused for thinking there was a party popping.
This is the first time she's ever got a ticket in her life.
A gravel lot filled with cars, a line stretched outside the building.
I got 2 tickets for running a red light violation.
But this isn't a neighborhood hotspot, it's red light camera court.
I got $700 worth of tickets in here within 2 months.
This is where drivers convene once a month to fight their fines or seek forgiveness after SafeSpeed's cameras caught them allegedly violating traffic laws in the suburb.
This is just a way for the village to make money. It's gotta be.
What? You think just because money is involved, someone's making profit? No way. They're just trying to protect you from all those new invisible Teslas out on the road. This is a matter of public safety. There's actually an entire business built around red light cameras. Corporations like Redflex and SafeSpeed supply local governments with red light cameras and maintain them. Of course, these corporations have to get government approval to install their cameras, so there are tons of sketchy, under-the-table deals between businessmen and politicians. According to Chicago attorney Patrick Keating, the red light camera programs are really the result of an unholy alliance between for-profit companies and cash-strapped municipalities, and they combine the worst of both. I'll explain how after the break. Welcome back. Like any business, the red light camera industry is motivated by profit, so companies are incentivized to get as many cameras installed as possible. And they're greasing the wheels with good old bribery. Take the case of Australian red light camera company Redflex. In 2014, Redflex got in hot water after it was discovered that the former deputy commissioner of the Chicago Department of Transportation accepted bribes from Redflex starting in 2003 in exchange for contracts. That's the most upsetting story involving tons of cash and red lights I've seen since Squid Game. The bribes included up to $2 million in cash, a new Mercedes car, and an Arizona condo. That's insane. I mean, why would anyone in Chicago want an Arizona condo? Redflex was Chicago's red light camera vendor from 2003 until 2010, when the Chicago Tribune exposed the bribery. In response, Redflex fired its executive vice president, Aaron Rosenberg, and sued him. Because how dare you get caught? Make bribes. In its lawsuit, Redflex accused Rosenberg of a protracted and covert scheme to misappropriate company funds. But Rosenberg fought back, saying he was simply carrying out orders and that other company executives also participated in bribery. Wow, who would have thought that an employee from a company whose sole business model is snitching on people would snitch on people? One of those executives Rosenberg accused turned out to be the CEO, and then she went to prison. I know what you're thinking. Political corruption in Chicago? Shocking. But Redflex's bribes went beyond just Chicago. According to Rosenberg, 13 other states have been bribed as well. As you recall, 23 states have red light camera laws, so Redflex was probably more mad that Rosenberg wasn't able to bribe them all. And Redflex was just the first company to get into hot water for bribery. These days, Chicago-based company SafeSpeed has been front and center in the city's red light camera scandals. Many Chicago officials went balls to the walls for SafeSpeed by keeping the city from banning red light cameras. All for thousands of dollars in bribes, of course. You know, because when everyone talks about how unsafe Chicago is, they mean all the people running red lights. It wasn't just Chicago city officials. Officials in the Chicago suburbs also got caught in bribery schemes. Multiple bribery schemes. Even the co-owner of SafeSpeed was in on it. Of course, SafeSpeed keeps saying that it's shocked and saddened, and I, for one, definitely believe them. Despite all of these scandals, SafeSpeed is still in business. The company has managed to keep its distance, claiming that all the people involved in these bribes were working on their own. Federal law enforcement is keeping a close eye on the company, though. Probably for a handout, considering how the story's unfolding. In the meantime, revelations of bribes connected to SafeSpeed just keep popping up, including a mayor who told a SafeSpeed official that he was making efforts to increase the number of red light tickets in his town. That's the same town from the news story I showed you earlier, where all the people were lining up to fight their red light tickets. And then there was another case where a state senator promised to stop legislation that would require studying red light cameras. Why would the red light camera industry try to shut down research on the very thing it specializes in? I'll tell you after the break. Welcome back. The red light camera industry has been caught bribing a gazillion politicians. And I'm just talking about Chicago. But at least red light cameras are keeping people safe from traffic accidents, right? Well, evidence says otherwise. Study after study from state governments and universities show that red light cameras have in fact led to more collisions. Yeah, that would explain why SafeSpeed didn't want studies done. It's kind of like how candy companies wouldn't want dentists studying how candy leads to cavities. Except for that 1 out of every 5 dentists who's totally corrupt. One of the most common reasons why red light cameras lead to more accidents is because cars quickly stop when yellow lights turn red to avoid getting fined. This leads to a lot of rear-end crashes. And many of these red light cameras aren't even necessary. According to a 2017 investigation by the Chicago Tribune, the majority of intersections that had red light cameras at the time were low to minimal risk intersections. In fact, some of them hadn't even had red light related accidents for at least 3 years prior to installing the camera. But the Illinois Department of Transportation approved cameras in low risk areas regardless, saying they're still dangerous. I guess because of all the invisible Teslas? Well, no, apparently the Illinois Department of Transportation's threshold for what's dangerous was changed in its policy to include locations where a mayor declared a perceived problem at a corner, no matter what the data said. And I'm sure all the bribes to mayors had absolutely nothing to do with that. But as far as safety is concerned, if people really want to reduce traffic accidents, then they should be implementing longer yellow lights. According to a 2004 Texas Transportation Institute study, increasing yellow lights by just 1 second leads to a 40% reduction in crashes. But that's a huge no-no for the red light camera industry and politicians, because who cares about safety when profit is on the line? Rather than improve safety, revenue-hungry cities are messing with traffic lights to write more tickets. According to a 2011 investigation by WTSP-TV, Florida quietly changed the duration of yellow lights to be below federal recommendations. The rule change was followed by engineers collaborating to shorten the length of yellow lights at intersections with red light cameras. So research shows red light cameras cause more accidents and longer yellow light times decrease accidents. However, the contracts in place with red light camera providers often specify maximum yellow light times and impose financial penalties if the city lengthens the yellow period. There has been pushback against corrupt red light cameras. Many groups even want to ban red light cameras altogether. But every effort to turn off red light cameras gets a counter response in turn. Turns out local governments are addicted to the money they get from red light cameras. As one activist put it, red light camera revenue is municipal crack cocaine. They're hooked on it. They'll go down fighting before they give up the revenue from the cameras. It's almost like a lot of politicians care more about making money than serving their constituents. No, that can't be. If that were true, then America would be in bad shape right now. And it's doing just great. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. All it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on our crowdfunding website, Patreon. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered for more.
We want to thank the good people at America Uncovered. TECN TV has asked for an Inspector General investigation into the DC Vision Zero program. Muriel Bowser, in her last testimony, advised that the reason for the need for new cameras was not for revenue, it was for public safety. She was scoffed at through her CFO by a congressman who was questioning the reasoning for the cameras. I'm going to tell you, in my personal belief, that there has to be some corruption there. I can't pinpoint it. I hope that you will tell me privately so that I can go public with it. But in this regard, there is no reason in the world for any red light cameras in the District of Columbia, speed cameras, stoplight cameras. It is a racket meant to scare up money for individuals with the promised result of improved public safety. And we have shown to you night after night after night that we have talked about DC Vision Zero, that there is no improvement whatsoever in the numbers. There is no data to prove that it works. In fact, there's a tendency in the Bowser administration to avert reporting on things, even like the Housing Trust Fund. Because who needs reports? Who need truth? We make it up as we go along. Just go along with us. If you are a DC citizen, or an American citizen for that effect, you need to get in contact with the Inspector General's Office of the District of Columbia and advise them that DC Vision Zero needs to be investigated for potential corruption at various levels, for-profit, non-profit, and government. It's on them to find it. It's on us to shine the light. We'll be right back right after this, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break.
Change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Yes, sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. Listen, 2,000 miles I roam just to make this dock my home. Now I'm just gonna sit at the dock of a bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of a bay, wasting time.
Hey folks, my name is Masada Ayub. I've been teaching deadly force and the use of weapons to police since 1972 and to law-abiding armed citizens since 1981. One thing I noticed over the years was an increasing number of unmeritorious prosecutions and lawsuits on people who had used such force in self-defense, but either a politically motivated prosecutor or a greed-motivated plaintiff's lawyer brought wrongful accusations against them. Lawyers are expensive, court is expensive. I've seen cases literally go into 7 figures. I've seen a whole lot of people go bankrupt defending themselves against wrongfully based allegations. I was delighted in 2008 to see the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network formed by Marty Hayes, Vincent Schuck, and Gila Hayes, and I was very proud to be one of the first members of the advisory board. Basically, the organization now has multiple millions in its war chest, if you will, to defend the wrongfully accused member. Understand that it's a member-based, member-driven, member-funded post-self-defense support group. It is not insurance. Marty and his team will review every case as it comes in, and we're not here to defend the guy that murdered his rival and is trying to say it was self-defense. But if it looks to us like self-defense, we'll be there for you. The board constitutes literally centuries of experience in teaching these concepts and in explaining them in courts of law. The educational component, essentially the many educational videos you'll receive with your first membership, will pretty much pay for the membership in and of itself. Remember, it's not insurance, it's planning ahead for potential crisis. I urge all my students to join. My family are members, and I hope you'll consider it as well.
I had to roll with my baby. I had to roll with my baby. I had to roll with my baby. 'Cause she's sweet that way. I've got a quarter, a nickel and a dime. Can't buy me no a whiskey, I guess I'll have to settle for wine. And then I can roll with my baby. I know I can roll with my baby. I'm sure I can roll with my baby. 'Cause she's sweet that way.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I believe I can roll with the baby. And this evening, our roll has been focused on the fact that some of the top U.S. banks in the country have upwards of 92% of those who bank with them in uninsured depositable accounts. Now the insurance level of the FDIC is $250,000. But many scoff at the fact that, Janet Yellen recently said we only had to use $20 billion of the $200 billion assets to backstop SVB, and then sell it. Jamie Dimon says the contagion is still there. There are a lot of issues and problems with our banks right now, and it's going to get worse. When you look at the number of banks that have uninsured deposits, we're asking the American people to take on the losses of the rich without taking on the profits of the rich. But don't worry, having a nationalized banking and monetary system will do that to you. We talked in the first hour of our program about the fact that the founding fathers did not intend our institutions to believe and act this way. But the big bankers have taken control of the U.S. monetary system. The very basis which gives money its value has been destroyed in the sense that we no longer look to government, to gold, we look to government. We practice fractional reserve banking and making money out of nothing. It's amazing that you all will tell me that you can make money out of nothing, and that doesn't prove that there is a God. I would differ. If you can emulate that, then you can emulate the fact, or at least admit the fact that God created everything out of nothing. So there you go. And in addition to that, the fractional bankers do the stuff that ordinary people can't do. They live off debt. And so tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that as people are moving towards this federal coin, this cryptocurrency, this cashless society, that it spells doom and trouble for all America. Our founding fathers wanted a capitalistic system that was very close to the heart of the people and protected by that which God had already created, gold. Unfortunately, there are those who are out there who have determined to destroy America's financial system. We have $9 trillion of liabilities and only $200 billion of assets when it comes to banking. You tell me how those numbers shake out.
Somewhere in the near future, physical money will become like these, relics of a different age, and will only be found in places like this. In other words, hard cash will disappear. It will become electronic, transferred by things like these. So what's the rush to get rid of cash? And what's the cost? Let's face it, money is cumbersome for consumers and banks.
You need to mint the cash, you need to print the bills, you need to transport them in armored trucks, store it in secure vaults, and you need to sort it at the till as well.
Operating in cash costs countries about 0.5% of their GDP every year. But cost isn't the only incentive to move towards a cashless future.
Demand is rising, primarily demand from young generations who are looking for fast, easy-to-use means of payments.
Digital payments aren't just easy, they're neat.
It becomes easier for governments to monitor tax evasion and fraud, so we will have less of that going on, probably.
Having every single payment automatically recorded is efficient, but there's a downside.
Let's assume, for example, that a country that used to be democratic, where people were not paying too much attention about safeguarding their privacy, becomes undemocratic and someone wants to control citizens more closely. They will try to infer from what you buy your political leanings, potentially. And generally speaking, just monitor what you're doing in ways that they shouldn't be doing.
The ballot boxes are kept locked and sealed.
Living in a democratic country doesn't mean you shouldn't be concerned.
They're also worried that private companies perhaps might use this data in ways that are not safe or that you might not like. And for a number of sectors, knowing what you do with your money is very important.
Electronic money trails can allow governments and private companies to access and harvest personal data. But there's another threat that's worrying banks: cyber attacks.
It was a high-tech bank robbery. Capital One suffering a massive hack attack involving
100 million Capital One customers' accounts
had their personal information stolen.
In March 2019, Capital One Bank was hacked.
A sole hacker managed to steal away 106 million people's personal details in a matter of days. And that attack was noticed just a few months after. You can see that a lot of companies are not very well protected yet against such threats. Pretty much every day we hear of data breaches, cyber attacks that are successful. It's much harder to prevent an attack than to be on the hacker side, because you only need to succeed once as a hacker. Once upon a time, you would have two guys coming in. They would tell everyone to be on the floor, they would put the money in a bag and then run away with the money. And you would get insurance against that. You knew what the risk was. Nowadays, with cyber attacks, they can happen anytime, they can take any form, so it's very hard to insure against.
Still, many countries are fast moving towards a cashless society. In Sweden, the number of retail cash transactions per person has fallen by 80% in the past 10 years. The trend is even evident in far more cash-loyal societies. China's digital payments rose from 4% of all payments in 2012 to 34% in 2017. The trend is inevitable, but a gradual transition is key.
It's important that we have a sort of control as to how fast this happens, because if that's not the case, some people might be left behind.
Some people may find it harder to grasp how much money they have without the physical representation of it. Not everyone knows how to use internet banking technology, and people living in remote areas where internet cover is patchy may find they have to drive for miles for their basic needs. And there's another sector of society that relies heavily on cash.
People living in the street don't carry card terminals with them, so it will be very hard for them, well, first of all, to collect money and to pay for things. They will be among the people who suffer the most from it.
Going cashless is just the latest evolution of money in the modern economy. But it raises a fundamental question. What is the value of money if it doesn't physically exist?
Central banks enact monetary policy by exerting control over the amount of money that is created and that is in circulation. And they can do it because they are the only entities that print and create money. The purpose of it is to control the amount of money that is used by the entire economy. In a cashless society, obviously this becomes much harder because money presumably can be created by other entities. And so central banks are actually starting to realize this, especially after Facebook made the announcement that they were going to launch a digital currency. It shows you the extent to which central banks are already thinking about the future of money.
The move towards cashless societies is well underway, but governments need to ensure that as cash is phased out, the vulnerable in society aren't left behind.
This push for a cashless society, while they pinpoint the homeless in that observation, they pinpoint those who don't have access to technology. Literally, those who are in have absolute control, and those who are out have no control whatsoever. The founding fathers understood that first, the valuation of your currency was essential to tying it to that which God had already created, gold. But secondly, that currency was important and that you do not move to a communist cash society where the government had control over all data and you can only there were opportunities for cash to be printed and provided, the valuation of which was established between the exchanges. Our founding fathers never wanted only a few to have control over the many, but that the many might have access to the actual tools of capital. While it looks real cool when we're walking up with that phone and we're going, here's my Starbucks purchase, we're giving control over to someone else. When we reach into our wallet and we pull out the $10 necessary at Starbucks, control is in my hands, not the government, not some data collecting organization out there in the world. We need to fight hard because there are some real concerns in terms of our future without cash.
People are using cash less and less in favor of credit cards and apps. It sounds so convenient, but it could also be very dangerous. Welcome to American Gov't. I'm Chris Chappell. Whenever people these days say that cash is cold and hard, that's because it's dead. Like Pogs, VCRs, and talking to your neighbors, cash is quickly becoming a thing of the past. And one day, cash could disappear or become obsolete. But this could be a big problem, No matter who you are or what your political persuasion, you need cash. And without it, we're all in trouble. Matt Gnezda has more. Matt?
Thanks, Chris. I know having to carry physical money is not as convenient as paying with a credit card or your phone, or the microchip implanted in your hand. I'm not kidding, that's a real thing. I'd rather get a juggalo tattoo put in my skin. That's because while cash may seem less convenient, it's actually super important. And if America actually becomes a cashless society, here are 10 serious dangers we could face. Number 10. For some insight into what a cashless society looks like, let's peer into the future, the Orwellian future, communist China. Over the past few years, China has already become an almost cashless society, especially in the cities. This is due in part to a state-sponsored effort to replace cash. What could possibly be behind an authoritarian government issuing a purely digital currency? Now, imagine you're a Chinese dissident. The Communist Party can immediately shut off your access to your own money. You might be thinking, well, that's China. A Western democracy wouldn't try to shut off someone's access to their bank accounts. Except that already happened in Canada. In February this year, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ordered banks to freeze funds of truckers protesting against him and his vaccine mandates. If that can happen in Canada, it can definitely happen in America, since America is basically just Canada, but with worse manners. Number 9. If you're feeling fed up with this world, you might want to try living off the grid. But without cash, that won't be possible. Part of being off the grid means not accessing a bank account. So if you can't use cash to pay for shovels, hoses, or any other necessary supplies, you're going to have to make them yourself. And you can't just watch a YouTube tutorial on how to do that either. Not just because you won't have access to the internet, but because if you try searching YouTube for how to make household items, all that pops up are Minecraft videos, which is especially discouraging since everything in Minecraft is done on grids. Number 8. Sometimes you just want to keep what you buy secret. But when you pay electronically, every purchase leaves a digital trail, like on your credit card statement. So without cash, you won't be able to surprise your spouse with a present because they can easily just look at your purchase records by accident right before Christmas every year. And what if you don't want your wife finding out about your medical visits? Or that you're spending money cheating on your diet? Look, sometimes a man just needs a bear claw, okay? And if you think your spouse tracking what you buy is an invasion of privacy, wait until you find out who else is looking at how you spend your money. More after the break. Welcome back. Number 7. Anything you don't pay for in cash could one day be tracked by the IRS. Last year, the administration proposed letting the IRS track bank accounts that do more than $600 in transactions a year. So basically that includes everyone. The Treasury Secretary claimed it was designed to end tax fraud by billionaires and would not mean Americans are being spied on. So she's saying they're doing this to try and stop billionaires from not paying their taxes. If that's true, then why was the threshold set at $600 and not $6 million? After a huge public backlash, Democrats proposed changing it to $10,000 a year. That still would cover almost every American, definitely not just billionaires. Fortunately, that hasn't been implemented, at least not yet. But unfortunately, while the IRS might not be tracking you, giant corporations are. They're tracking everything you buy with your credit card. So I'd recommend you start buying items with cash, unless you want MasterCard knowing you spent $600 on donuts and bad coffee. Number 6. Some people say we shouldn't even have cash because cash allows criminals to commit crimes and get away with it. True, but criminals also use cars to commit crimes. Should we ban cars? Imagine the absolute havoc that would wreak on the Fast and Furious franchise. The government might say, if you're a good person, you don't have anything to hide. But that's not necessarily true. I'm a journalist. Now, I'm not claiming to be a good person, but as a journalist, I may have legitimate reasons for hiding something. Like maybe I'm looking into government corruption and I need to take a taxi in cash to a secret location to observe an illegal meeting. Or I need cash to buy a burner phone to talk with a whistleblower. Or just not leave a paper trail during my investigation. For certain things, I can't just order stuff on Amazon with my credit card. It'd be too easy for the government to figure out that I bought that burner phone. along with a knee pillow, a French press, and the board game Don't Wake Daddy. Yeah, I know how to party. Number 5. Cashless societies hurt undocumented immigrants. I know this might be a divisive topic. Then again, in this political climate, everything is a divisive topic. A lot of Democrats say they want to improve the lives of undocumented immigrants living in the US. But one thing that's not going to help them is eliminating cash. Many undocumented immigrants are forced to work in cash-only industries because if they have bank accounts, they can be traced. And if they can be traced, immigrations and customs enforcement can find them and deport them. For a lot of undocumented people, cash is the only way they can navigate society. So Democrats, while you're fighting to give them health care, it won't make much of a difference if they don't even have cash to buy food. You're forcing these people off the grid, which is ironic since I've already shown that without physical money, you can't live off the grid. It's a real Cash-22 situation. Number 4, whenever you spend money digitally, you're making someone rich a little bit richer. Because unless you're using cash, every purchase goes through an intermediary, like a bank, a credit card company, or a payment app like Venmo. Or if you're a grandma, PayPal. These services often charge a 2 or 3% fee just to spend your own money. That gets charged to the merchant, who then passes it to you in the form of higher prices. So you're just making big corporations even richer. They're already so powerful, they're considered too big to fail. Even when they do mess up, the government just bails them out. Wouldn't it be nice if you lost a bunch of money gambling and the government immediately paid you back? Don't worry, we got you. Now go throw $100 on red for me. And after the break, I'll tell you other ways banks can hurt you when they fail in a cashless society. Welcome back. Number 3, if all your money is in a bank account that you suddenly don't have access to and you don't have any cash, you're out of luck. And it isn't always totalitarian leaders shutting you out. Sometimes it's just system errors. Sweden is one of the first Western countries to go cashless, or close to it. But in April this year, thousands of customers' bank accounts incorrectly showed that they had been emptied or overdrawn. Oopsie! Some Swedish customers had to wait weeks for their account balances to be restored. And what if they needed to buy something in the meantime? They'd have no choice but to pillage local stores. Do you want Vikings in IKEA? Because getting rid of cash is how you get Vikings in IKEA. There are other reasons besides simple bank errors that could cut off your access to your own bank account. Like, what if you're the victim of ID theft and you have to shut down your accounts to resolve it? Or what if there's a power outage? When Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012, millions of people in the Northeast lost power. My neighborhood lost power for 8 days. No power meant no electronic purchases. Cash was the only way to pay for anything. Thank goodness I had some. And thank goodness I didn't live in New York's Little Sweden district. That place was chaos. But even if you want to keep cash for emergencies, it's getting harder and harder. Since, number 2, there's a coin shortage. I've needed to do laundry for weeks, but I don't want to part with my precious quarters, which is why I'm not wearing any pants. Now, it's not too far-fetched to believe that as people use cash less and less, we may soon see a cash shortage in general, and that could hurt various groups. The lack of cash punishes the homeless for being poor. And the neighbor's kid who mows your lawn shouldn't have to get a bank account for you to pay them. And I don't think children should be allowed to have credit cards either. If I'm being honest, I don't even trust 25-year-olds with credit cards. Money well spent right here. And finally, number 1. The biggest danger of living in a cashless society is national security. Russia loves hacking the US, and so does China. Imagine we're at war with Russia or China. Not too far-fetched at this point. And what if they hacked into MasterCard or Citibank or Venmo to collect everyone's personal information? Do you really want them knowing you recently bought a knee pillow, a French press, and the board game Don't Wake Daddy? Xi Jinping and Putin don't need to find out that I know how to party. And if China or Russia hacks into banking institutions just to see people's data, that's the best case scenario. If they're able to disable these financial services, even for just a few minutes, our entire economy could be in serious trouble. Well, more trouble. Look, I know paying with a card seems more convenient, but is giving up cash really worth the risk? Also, cash is just cool. Do you really want to live in a world where rappers no longer flash cash? They're just flashing QR codes? Sounds like a nightmare to me. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Matt. What do you think? What are some other dangers of living in a cashless society? Leave your comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. Be sure to visit patreon.com/America.
Definitely visit them. But you think everything would be convenient. And everything that's convenient is acceptable and strident. It's a thrivable thing. But I want you to know that you don't shop every single day at 7-Eleven. Convenience. You don't go to Wawa's. Convenience. For everything that you need. So if you don't do that for everything that you need, why would you do it for cash? Why would you take cash off the table and allow someone who controls this to have access to your private data and where your money is? It is not wise for America to become a cashless society. I know it's so cool. You can walk around with a phone and everything. But I want you to understand that the same people that have control of your information that you're talking about or spreading misinformation will be the very same people who have control over the most important information to you, your money.
The cashless society was part of the Great Reset, in which all physical money was erased. Now money only existed as a digital currency within the machine. Countries were flooded with economic relief for the pandemic. But the continual support and reinforcement given to the system would only lead to a crash. It was designed that way. The fear kept people believing and trusting in an illusion of their false legacy. But whoever controlled or created this digital currency had the ultimate investment. They owned us. Governments kept promising us we would go back to normal, but lockdowns crushed people's expectation to where the only entertainment was their black screen and the four walls within their containment cells. Society now only existed in the technological world. They sold technology to us as if it saved us from disease and solved all of our problems. But in reality, it destroyed humanity and finished the world as we know it. There was no other choice but to reset the system. With the cashless society in place, they brought in global credit scoring, the new economic model. From fear of loss and security, humans sacrificed their freedom into the satanic pit, blindly following their masters. Through the social credit score, humans have become the perfect product. The credit score gave an analysis to what sort of citizen you were. Are you a good citizen? How did you behave? You had to comply or you were penalised and your points were deducted. Eventually you were blacklisted and sent to the camps. With AI surveillance fully integrated into society, and with the satellite systems in place, everyone was tracked. There was no way out. You couldn't hide. The cashless way was sold to us through the tech companies and made to look perfectly streamlined and effortless. We continued to comply with the capitalist beliefs because we were rewarded just enough to keep in the loop. But this was the trick. To keep their corruption a secret, we had to be the ones that hid it, and we did. We were bribed by the lie that their way was the only way. Through compliance, we made their darkness more powerful. It was the repeated pattern they used on us over and over again, because it worked. Until we became conscious, no one rebelled, but unless we rebelled, no one would become conscious. People resisted and fought with anger, but their souls were shattered from years of entrapment. People wanted anarchy, but their increasing powerlessness only led to self-destruction and dismantling of their spirits. The cashless society is the next step, but how we work with it determines the step that follows. Centralization leads to mass control, and mass control is dictated to us by the few. We can't get distorted by the lies we are being told. We are the many, and through breaking out of old human mind patterns, we can create our own future, a future determined by us. but we must see that future now and constructively work at it. What world do you want to create? By letting psychopaths run our world, we have destroyed this incredible experience, full of potential, and allowed it to suffocate our light. We had a choice, and there was once hope, but now that's over. Consciousness surpasses death. But what destruction will you leave behind? We have a window of opportunity, and we have it now. Will we take it? Will you?
I hope you're getting tonight that I'm opposed to a cashless society. But more importantly, I hope that you're getting tonight that you should be opposed to a cashless society. Dystopia has presented a great deal of truth about technology, about pharmaceutical companies, about your government. Their willingness to encase you in what you think is freedom, but they know to be jail. For them to control every thought that you have, everywhere that you go, everything that you say, think, and do. That government becomes your new God. And you wish to appease because you don't want to start any trouble. You don't want to be the problem. You just want to get along with everybody. I want to give you this final thought regarding a cashless society and how close to slavery you really are that you don't even think about it.
Well, you alerted me to this story. A recent picture in a sign in a Starbucks cafe, which is circulating on Twitter, saying that they're going cashless. We're going cashless. Now, I was over in the UK recently, as you know, and I was horrified by the number of places, James and Michael, that you go to that they just do not accept cash. You feel you could walk out of the restaurant and say, well, if you don't want my legal tender, forget it. But Sophie, this fired you up. Tell us why.
Well, largely, most of this is actually a casualty and something that has continued on through COVID. So they use COVID as an excuse to basically outlaw cash. So during COVID, nowhere took cash because they said, oh, you know, it will transfer bacteria. But a lot of places have kept it. And it's outraged me because a cashless society, to me, is first of all the gateway to digital identity, but also is a real vehicle of government overreach. And if you think this is some sort of conspiratorial nonsense, just have a look at Canada. They froze the accounts of the people who engaged in the trucker protest. They shut down the GoFundMe donations, and they also froze people's accounts of people who just happened to donate money or supported, so people that weren't even involved. So going cashless is a way for the government to police people's views through money and how to, that for me, cashless society is the last straw of taking away our freedom. But it's also extremely discriminatory. I mean, what about old people, domestic violence, people who hide away cash that they can escape their lovers or children? I mean, a cashless society is just utterly terrible for anyone. And I think that as people, we should boycott any business that goes cashless. So any business that goes cashless will not get my support. So my new saying is, go cashless, go broke.
A cashless society, ladies and gentlemen. A cashless society. Taking away your very freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've enjoyed this particular last late night money moment. And as well, I hope that you will join us tomorrow night on the Exceptional Conservative Show live for the nation's capital. If you don't remember anything else that I said tonight, I hope that you do remember this. God bless America. It is now time for America to bless God. Good night. God bless you all. We will see you tomorrow night. Peace.
Hey, yo, put your friend on the phone. I got a pot for her to meet. Yo, this Teddy, who? Mr. Rump Shaker, big money maker, download record, met her on the set, and she look right. Gave her the number, said call me tonight. See, I keep it real when I'm talking on the phone. If honey ain't home, then I dial another tone every day like water. Switching the We keeping it real on the east. It's the dog in me, so the chase don't cease. Who let the cat out the bag? Gotta get the cat, so honey, don't get mad.